There they were, at the end of the Battle of Heroes, Obi-Wan Kenobi standing on the black sand shores of Mustafar, looking down at Anakin on the platform in the river of lava. Obi-Wan then uttered the famous line, "It's over, Anakin, I have the high ground." But what exactly did this mean? And why did the high ground actually matter? Greetings, acolytes of the Force and of the galaxy, and welcome back to our ever-expanding archives. The high ground scene in Revenge of the Sith has gone down into legend as being an iconic scene as well as one of ridicule. Many people have speculated what exactly mattered about the high ground and why it apparently gave Obi-Wan a show-stopping advantage, just as Obi-Wan explains that it was over since he had taken that position, clearly indicating that for some reason, it should have been understood that he was now the victor. But why exactly was this? What strategical position would the high ground have actually given him in this fight? And why did the high ground actually work, causing the all-powerful Dark Lord to succumb to his much weaker master? Well, let's open up another holocron and figure out the secret behind the high ground, as well as the ultimate defeat of Anakin Skywalker. In a typical battle setting, having the high ground meant a significant tactical advantage over one's opponent. In most high ground based battles in the Clone Wars, this would have been an utmost priority when establishing battlefield positioning. Reason being, having the high ground meant the ability to see down on an opponent and have complete surveillance of an entire battlefield, firing down on an opponent which was much easier than firing up at a single one. But here's the thing that I'm sure you all are wondering. This is for gunfights. What does this have anything to do with a lightsaber duel? Lightsaber duels are far different, as there isn't much ranged attacking going on at all. That is actually counterproductive to how a duel even works, especially in the case of Anakin versus Obi-Wan. In this duel, they were constantly blade to blade, rarely even using any force powers at all. When in a duel, high ground doesn't exactly offer much advantages besides maybe being able to off-balance one's opponent by attempting to drive them back. But in fact, I would think that having the high ground in a sword duel would be a mistake, as it leaves one's legs exposed, since your legs would be right at your opponent's torso level, giving them the striking advantage. For evidence as to why having the high ground in a lightsaber duel actually doesn't seem to matter, is that Count Dooku didn't take much advantage of it at all. If you're wondering why we bring up Dooku, it's because just days earlier on the Invisible Hand, Anakin was in a duel with Dooku. When the Sith Lord Darth Tyrannus force-pushed Obi-Wan away, he engaged in single combat with Anakin, backpedaling as the young Skywalker drove him back. Right in the duel, we can see Dooku backing up a staircase with Anakin below him. By all reason, if we are led to believe that the high ground actually matters in a duel, Dooku of all people should know this simple trick, and would have held his ground on this staircase, using the vantage point to dismantle the young Skywalker. In Return of the Jedi, we see Luke use a staircase against Vader on their duel on the Death Star, kicking him down it in order to gain distance, and yet Dooku continues to back up, giving away his alleged advantage to allow himself to be on equal ground up on the balcony. Also in that same fight, Anakin kicks Dooku off of the balcony, and instead of holding that position to bait Dooku into a trap, Anakin drops down and continues dueling the Count. Now, we may chalk this up to Anakin wanting to be aggressive in this fight. However, we're continuing to work off of the knowledge of what Obi-Wan explicitly stated, which was, "It's over, because I have the high ground." In the same vein of thought, we see in a few other battles when having the high ground didn't seem to matter much at all in a duel, because either the combatant who had it freely gave it away by jumping down to their opponent. And in the most popular one in The Phantom Menace, in Obi-Wan vs. Maul, Obi-Wan was able to completely negate this advantage by jumping over Maul. But I think that we have just found our answer. The entire secret to the high ground line lies directly in this very duel. Star Wars has a habit of harking back to earlier story beats, and perhaps it was this very duel that it was referencing. Allow me to explain this. Obi-Wan had been on the back foot for their entire fight. He couldn't gain a single advantage over Anakin the whole time that they were dueling. The two of them knew each other too well, and neither one could get leverage over the other. Anakin's aggressive and persistent Form 5 Gem So was hammering away at Obi-Wan's defenses, and even though Kenobi was the master of Sirisu, even he couldn't hold out against the Chosen One, who was beefed up by the dark side. Not even the Jedi Battlemaster Sindrala could withstand the power of Darth Vader during Order 66. Obi-Wan knew that eventually he was going to lose this duel with Anakin. His plan then had to have been to try to outlast Anakin, maybe talk him down, or at least create an opening for a strike. But again, Anakin knew his master's style far too well by this point in time, and this was the very thing Obi-Wan intended to exploit. If Anakin knew him so well, would he be bold enough to try one of Obi-Wan's own tricks against him? Well, the answer is yes. We can see the seeds of this solution planted at the very beginning of their fight, when Obi-Wan berates him for being too angry and lustful for power. Obi-Wan knew Anakin for most of his life, and the one problem that persisted through most of his training, the one thing Obi-Wan could never get his apprentice to let go, was his arrogance. Obi-Wan knew that Anakin didn't just want to beat his master, he wanted to destroy him, humiliate him even. And the only way to do that was to prove his superiority by using one of Obi-Wan's own moves against him to kill Kenobi. All Kenobi needed to do was to bait it out. This final move would be the same one that Obi-Wan used against Darth Maul in The Phantom Menace. The move that caused Obi-Wan to jump right over Maul's head and cutting him directly in half. It was a maneuver that no one expected a Jedi to pull because it was so underhand, and it used a forbidden lightsaber technique known as Sai Tak, simply the act of bisecting one's opponent at the waist or the torso. It was considered barbaric and was completely against the Jedi way. In the comics, we see how a Padawan Anakin Skywalker used to hone his lightsaber skill by training on the very Darth Maul dueling bot, battling against the same sequences that a Padawan Kenobi would have. It's likely that he pulled that move a couple of times to try it out after hearing Obi-Wan's glory story of how it all ended. Now though, it was time for Anakin to take the mantle of being the true master, the most important thing to him. Obi-Wan leaps to the high ground, and instead of doing anything else, he simply baits Anakin into jumping by declaring that the duel was over. Anakin took offense at this, refusing to understand why his master wouldn't acknowledge that he was now far more powerful. This was a challenge, and this is why Anakin would respond with, "You underestimate my power." Obi-Wan took one last pity on his apprentice and tried to warn him, letting Anakin know that he knew exactly what his apprentice was going to try. But the arrogant young boy was far too stubborn and far too gone to listen. So, when Anakin tried to pull this illegal Sai Tak, Obi-Wan responded with another illegal move, something that would catch Anakin off guard, a move that a Sith Lord would never expect a Jedi to pull, and that would be Mo Ki. Mo Ki is the act of slicing through multiple limbs at once in a single stroke of the blade, typically starting with both knees. Obi-Wan perfectly predicted exactly what Anakin would do and responded accordingly. So now, you see that the secret of the high ground really has nothing to do with the high ground itself. Obi-Wan's line to Anakin was actually just bait, as he had known the arrogance of his apprentice, and knowing that his apprentice would try to pull one of his own moves against him. Obi-Wan had to pull a cheap trick since that was the only way to stop Anakin. It was likely that after their second conversation on the lava river, he realized that his apprentice was truly lost, and he immediately began looking for an opportunity to pull off his last-ditch plan. Anakin was so blinded by rage and so deeply saturated with the dark side that he couldn't see a plain trick right in front of him. This would be the ultimate catalyst for why Darth Vader in his suit would change the entire way he used the dark side. Rather than allowing himself to be swept up in a fiery hurricane of power like he did as a fallen Jedi, he rather emphasized the machine over the man, opting instead to kindle a cold fury and nurture a swelling storm deep within himself. He learned that his arrogance and blind rage had left him open to one of the most obvious traps in the book, which ultimately cost him his life and freedom outside of the tomb of his armor. Never again would Vader allow himself to fall for cheap tricks such as this. This being another reason why so many Jedi fell at his blade, many were completely unable to outwit him. So my friends and acolytes, I do hope you enjoyed this revelation about what the high ground truly means, and if you enjoyed these breakdowns of duels, be sure to leave a comment and request what other duels you want to see broken down in another holocron. Until then my friends, may the Force be with you, and I hope to hear from you soon.